When Berserk first started, who would have thought that a literal child would become one of its most important characters? We didn't, and yet that's exactly what's happened with Schierke, the literal definition of an anime best girl. This young lady has fought monsters 10 times her size and lived to tell the tale. She has used magic that impresses even the most experienced practitioners of arcana, and she has skills that might just make her the key to winning Berserk's final battle. But is that true? And how much of Schierke's influence is actually important for that final battle? We're going to answer all those questions and more in this video, so without further ado, let's get right into it.
She's the only one who can channel the Berserker armor. One of the biggest aspects of the final battle is going to be the use of the Berserker armor beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's perhaps the strongest weapon in the arsenal of humanity right now, but as longtime viewers of our channel know, it's also quite unstable. Despite being armor, we're calling it a weapon because it's a lot like a double-edged sword. It might cut your enemies down to size, but it can also cut into you and try to devour your life force before you can say the words "Open Sesame." The Berserker armor was designed to push a human being past their natural limits. It does that by negating the sensation of pain and pushing one's nervous system into overdrive. Where acts like leaping across a field were impossible before without the assistance of a magical object like the Sylph Cloak, they've become run-of-the-mill with the Berserker armor because it forces the user's body to expend that kind of energy no matter the cost to their bodies. And that cost is heavy, because every limit-breaking move you make leaves you injured, and before you know it, 2 spectacular moves have started making you bleed like a pig on a chopping block. That's what happened to Guts when he first used the armor, because even before going after his main target at the time, he started bleeding profusely. And moreover, if your mind isn't anchored and your ego collapses, the armor will simply take control of you and make you kill anything that moves on sight. It warps the perception of the user in order to eliminate threats without discrimination, and that includes friends, because when everything looks like gnashing teeth threatening to tear you apart, differentiating between friend and foe becomes the least of your worries. The biggest problem the armor's current user has is holding it back from hurting his friends, because Guts' malice is so strong that it instantly activates the Berserker armor like he's dropped that cowboy hat he was wearing during the Golden Age. But that's also where Schierke comes into the picture, because she's the only one so far who's been able to hold the armor back and make it function optimally without hurting Guts too much. The first time he fought as the Berserker, it was easier for her to infiltrate the armor's ode and clear up his warped perception precisely because it was his first time. After that, things got progressively more difficult because the Berserker armor is semi-alive and it really doesn't want anyone messing with its desire to rampage. Schierke has been blocked from entering it while it's causing havoc on at least a couple of occasions because it knows she's an anchor for Guts' mind, but that doesn't stop her from trying. One time, when her luminous body got knocked back into her physical body, she risked her life to stop Guts' rampage by climbing on his back and forcing the Berserker armor open. It was a dangerous gamble, and one even he told her not to repeat, but it had a side effect that proved to be quite advantageous later on. In touching the Berserker armor while it was active, Schierke's luminous body kind of merged with its ode and Guts' ode, and it made her a driver. So later, when they teamed up against a massive sea monster, whom we'll get to in just a second, she was able to merge her ode with theirs before the armor was activated and guide Guts to victory against insurmountable odds. Granted, Schierke's projection skills aren't the best at stopping a Berserker rampage. That would be the Moonlight Boy's, because his luminous body has halted the Berserker in its tracks on those occasions where Schierke failed. But with enough preparation, she is the one who will be able to channel its power optimally alongside Guts, which already makes her a major war asset. Her knowledge of arcana is rivaled only by great mages. Apart from being the person who can draw out the Berserker armor's full strength, while negating many of its heavy costs, Schierke is also an expert on the astral world and the art of arcana, which makes her even more important in a world that's been overrun by astral creatures. Even when she was introduced, it was clear to us that this little girl was going to be crucial in the final battle because she was able to correctly identify Griffith as the prophesized Falcon of Darkness, the one who would bring an age of darkness unlike anything the world had ever seen. Her ability to use her luminous body and merge it with creatures like birds is already quite refined, but that's not all. Manipulating Ode to confuse people and astral creatures is second nature to her because she was able to help the group infiltrate Klipoff by tricking the trolls that were present in that space, and she was able to walk around Vritannis, the center of power for the Holy See, in her witch's garb by leaving the guards confused. Preteen Schierke is able to locate and channel nature spirits like she was born for that purpose, and she's proven it on 4 separate occasions. The first was in Enoch Village, where despite the dampening effects of the village church, she was able to find an ancient shrine dedicated to a water spirit and use that spirit's power to summon a torrent powerful enough to wash away every troll, ogre, and kelpie in the region. This power was so strong that even Guts was shocked by it because it ended up changing the landscape itself, and that was just the beginning. In Clip-Off, she summoned the power of a spirit of darkness called the Rotting Root Lord and used decay on multiple packs of trolls. Spirits of darkness are much harder to control simply because their wills conflict with the goodness in a magician's heart, and so she wasn't able to sustain her summoning for too long, but she held out long enough to get the job done, and much longer than even she had anticipated. In Vertanis, during the Black Swordsman party's battle with the demonic forces of Emperor Ganishka, she was able to summon and channel a vengeful fire spirit called the Wheel of Flame not once, but twice. The first time she used it to possess a giant wheel at the Vertanis harbor and decimate Ganishka's Daka and land-based Pishacha forces. The second time, she channeled it through Dragonslayer to help take down the immensely powerful water spirit being wielded by their enemy called the Kundalini. We'll get back to that in just a moment because we need to talk about Schierke's final summoning flex in the series. That flex occurred at Elfhelm, where she summoned a spirit of darkness from a tree hole where other mages couldn't even detect it, and she attributed this to her battle experience and growth, but her innate talents were to thank just as much. And this is also where we go back to that Kundalini we were talking about, because her battle against an Eastern sorcerer proved her worth as a major war asset big time. When Guts & Co. met Daiba for the first time, Schierke was intimidated by him because he used a subset of magic that was completely unknown to her. She was trained in the Western world's understanding of arcana, but Daiba used Eastern schools of magic, which relied on hand seals and chanting to summon massive hordes of demonic beings. The battle against the Kundalini was a coming-out moment for Schierke, Guts, and Serpico because they realized that even with zero preparation, their little witch was now experienced enough to improvise a winning strategy. It was her astral perception that located the true body of Daiba's Kundalini, and it was thanks to her channeling of the Wheel of Flame that Guts was able to evaporate the Kundalini's watery outer shell so that Serpico could use the Sylph Sword on its real body and kill it dead. Speaking of the Sylph Cloak, Schierke was the one who gave our heroes their signature magical weapons and explained to them how they work and how they can intensify their powers by simply aligning with and appreciating the spirits that dwelled within. And despite being an apprentice mage, she knows that Guts and Casca's brands are warping the very space around them and that the Behelit is an ominous object rooted in evil energies. This acute understanding of the astral world and its inner workings is what allows her to take on the most difficult apostle to deal with in all of Berserk, Emperor Ganishka, because she's able to accurately identify that his apostle form isn't physically manifested. She explains to Guts that Ganishka's thundercloud form is rooted in deeper layers of the astral world where he subdues Undines and Sylphs to generate his awesome powers. And this leads to Guts and Zod formulating a plan for taking down their intangible enemy. Using Schierke's ability to detect the precise location of one's astral body, they hone in on the brow of Ganishka's thundercloud form and use Guts' Dragonslayer, steeped in astral energy thanks to his years of cutting down dead spirits and worse, to kill a thundercloud. The young witch was also the first person to realize that Yzma was a human marrow hybrid, just based off the girl's aura, so that's something to keep in mind as well. There have been several occasions where Schierke's formation of the Four Kings has brought our protagonists enough time to formulate counterattack strategies, and in fact, she was the one who recognized the 4 elemental kings as the cardinal angels described in the scriptures of the Holy See, revealing that she can actually unravel the mystery of the first eclipse when all the pieces are put into place. Schierke can even replicate Flora's immensely complicated brand of sacrifice dampening talisman, which makes use of advanced arcane concepts and techniques, hinting that her knowledge in this case will be able to help our heroes formulate a similar tactic to seal up the God Hand's influence forever. She also recognized the seals placed outside of Yzma's home and the sea god's lair, which indicates that her ability to understand and dissect her surroundings is on a level above everyone else. Her healing skills are the reason Guts is still alive, and the fact that Schierke started teaching Farnesane magic long before they reached Elfhelm is proof that she's an expert in the subject, on par with some of the great gurus of Elfhelm. In fact, when she reaches Elfhelm, she's able to diffuse the preliminary security measures by herself, The fact that she was able to outclass everyone at Elfhelm who had been studying magic since their earliest days on day 1 alone was proof enough for us that Schierke is something special, and this was proven when she actually helped take down a rather troublesome enemy. She's killed a godlike figure already. The goal of Berserk's final battle won't be just to stop Griffith, it'll be eradicating the God Hand's influence from the world entirely. To that end, we think it's rather helpful that Schierke has already helped defeat a deity in the form of the Sea God. The Sea God was perhaps the greatest challenge that Guts has ever faced in his entire life because it was the size of Emperor Ganishka in his Shiva form, yet completely in control of itself. It wasn't a mindless being, aimlessly spitting fire from its many mouths and creating pseudo-Ganishkas on instinct. It was cold and calculated, selecting its targets carefully and assimilating them within its own body to then turn them into extensions of itself. During the boat arc, Guts and his companions dealt with a 3-ship pirate fleet quite easily, thanks to the naval expertise of Captain Prince Roderick of Ith. But then those ships and their crews became thralls of the Sea God, and it took Guts to beat them back into the sea again. After that, they arrived at Yzma's island, and Schierke was instantly able to recognize that something was wrong with the place. When she saw the Sea God's idol all over the village, she connected it to the ominous ode she was sensing, and her investigations reveal the true source of the Pirates of the Caribbean-style Kraken that they fought on their way to Yzma's island. Now, it's true that the confrontation with the Sea God and its results were completely dependent on Schierke. Guts did most of the heavy lifting over there because his battle experience was what led that expedition. When they entered the Sea God's cave, Schierke thought they were going to fight each individual tentacle monster from the outside and work their way in. Guts was the one who used his knowledge of anatomy to directly jump into the monster's jaws and cut his way up to its heart chamber. In fact, Schierke learned a lot about how to deal with an enemy in that moment thanks to Guts, and that knowledge will come in handy during the final battle simply because of the shape of the Sea God's heart. That thing looked exactly like the idea of evil, which suggests to us that a final battle will feature the idea in some way, shape, or form. If it does, Schierke now knows how to bypass the difficult obstacles and get to the root of things. And even during the battle with the Sea God, she played a crucial role in bringing it down by guiding Guts towards its heart. Because of the submerged nature of the entity, walking in its heart chamber was like walking on the ocean floor. Sound carried so well in that place that Guts was temporarily blinded and rendered deaf. It was Schierke who showed him the path through their telepathic connection, and she was the first one to direct rescue operations as well, because as soon as the Sea God's heart was ruptured, the flow of blood coming out of it was so intense that her luminous body got knocked out of the Berserker armor in its controlled state. All in all, the combination of her knowledge and Guts' strength were the keys to defeating this evil deity, and we're 110% sure that Miura included the Sea God in the story as a prelude to what will happen during the final battle, where a much larger enemy than it will end up making an appearance. And luckily enough, right now, she's smack dab in the middle of enemy territory, which makes her the perfect woman on the inside. She's the spy in the enemy camp and might bring it down from inside. The last time we saw Schierke in her physical body was when she was on the Seahorse as it escaped the ruins of Elfhelm and Skellig Island. She initiated a ritual that even the best of mages would hesitate from performing. She was going to project her body into the World Spiral Tree and navigate its countless branches to reach and rescue Casca. Schierke didn't know if her gambit would pay off, but she needed to try anyways because she owed it to Guts. He was the one who gave her the strength to believe in herself, and if finding Casca was the last thing she ever did, she was fine with it. The ritual ended up involving the entire non-essential crew of the Seahorse because as a regular mage, she couldn't exactly do what the Moonlight Boy does and teleport herself onto the branches of the World Tree. Even Sonia, whose astral perception and connection is on par with Schierke's, needs Griffith's powers to traverse those branches, and she doesn't even know what a luminous body is. A long time has passed since Schierke entered those branches, so much so that her elf companion Ivalira is worried that she'll never wake up. But we've seen her twice after she entered the astral world's dragon path, something that impressed even the evil sorcerer Daiba, by the way. The first time we saw her was when she pulled Guts out of his own misery right before Rakshas attacked the Kushan capital, and the second time was when Farnace erected the formation of the Four Kings in the Kushan capital. That second time was probably just to check in on her apprentice and gauge whether she could pull off something as important as being the witch in charge of the situation, because the Elfhelm mages they rescued were practically practically useless at that point. But when she was assured of the fact that Farnace had things under control, she went back into the World Tree's branches and reached Falconia in an instant. We have to assume that all the time Schierke didn't return to her body was spent mapping the Dragon Path and figuring out how to get to Casca. This won't make sense if you think of time the way regular people do, because even a month wouldn't be enough to map out a portion of the Dragon Path, let alone its entirety. But time works differently in the astral world, so it's possible that Schierke has already spent months roaming the World Tree's branches. We just don't know about it. Her final piece of dialogue, as of now, was something along the lines of, "Don't worry, Miss Casca, I'll find you and I'll save you," and now that she's at the gates of Falconia, she can actually do that. Casca's jailbreak might just serve as the trigger point for the final battle, because there's a reason Griffith took her back home with him at the great risk of exposing his real nature. He needs her under his control so he can prevent becoming vulnerable every time he turns into the Moonlight Boy on nights of the full moon. And if you guys noticed the prophecy that heralded the arrival of the seahorse on Kushan shores, it refers to the moon in its crescent stage, which means that time is coming sooner rather than later for Griffith. Right now, Casca's under a spell that's making her question what's real and what isn't, because she thinks she's a Falconian noblewoman, but she has flashes of her real life and journey whenever she's close to water. Schierke's luminous body contacting her would break that trance completely, and moreover, there's also a prophecy that says she will reunite with Sonia before everything is said and done. This reunion will expose Griffith's true nature to the seer that loves him so much she's willing to get in the middle of him and his queen-to-be, and when that happens, Sonia should be able to facilitate Casca's escape. The transformation into the Moonlight Boy isn't a temporary problem for Griffith. As long as the demon child remains fused into his vessel, he'll keep transforming, so he'll need Casca back. And that's when we think the final battle will begin. During that battle, Schierke's unique set of skills and her vast wealth of knowledge, as well as her innate talent for the arcane arts, should become a crucial factor in winning it, because if we haven't established that throughout this video, we haven't been doing our jobs right. Most likely, she'll be the one to come up with a spell that allows Skull Knight to use the Sword of Actuation without God Hand interference and ensure that once they're banished to the Abyss, they stay there. Also, her ability to release the souls of dead people should make the afterlife a lot more balanced, instead of having souls being sent to hell en masse because people think Griffith is their savior. So when everything is said and done, this little girl, who's barely 12 years old, will prove to be the key to winning the final battle of Berserk, but that's just our opinion. Conclusion. What do you guys think? Will Schierke solve the God Hand problem with a little help from her meddlesome gang? Or will she overestimate herself like she did when she thought the Moonlight Boy was an avatar of Danon, aka the Flower Storm Monarch? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Berserk content. We'll see you guys soon with another video, so until then, stay safe, and remember to keep on struggling, strugglers.